Taylor.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
So I just want to say quickly, I am super honored to share the stage with the speakers from this morning and everyone who will follow. It's just such an incredible group of people, and already riding so much inspiration from what we heard this morning. So thank you all, and thanks everybody for who will share the stage today. So to get started, I want to ask you to do something right off the bat, and that is to think of a project that you are working on and write down what is the impact that you are hoping to achieve. So just in a nutshell, what will be different when you are successful? So as an example, I might be designing a workshop to introduce facilitation into a legacy organization. And the impact that I'm hoping to achieve is that at the end, everyone has fallen in love with facilitation as the best way to do collaborative work. So take about 30 seconds and jot that down. Okay, so if you're still writing, that's totally fine. We'll come back to that in a moment, but I want to ask you a different question first. And I want to ask you, if you're playing a game and you have an 87.9% chance of winning, what are you going to wager? You don't have to write it down. Just think about it for a moment. Okay. All in. Okay. Well, let's talk about that. So this number is actually a win probability that was from the NBA Finals this past year. Any basketball fans in the audience? Excellent, all right. So a little quick backstory. I'm from the San Francisco Bay Area, and my fiance is from the Boston area. And we were delighted that so early in our life together, last year, we got our first head-to-head major sports championship with the Golden State Warriors playing against the Boston Celtics. So on the screen right now is the ESPN model for the win probability in the game. And a few minutes into the first quarter, the Celtics were favored to win with an 87.9% win probability. The model takes into account a number of variables, including who's on the floor, what the score is, historical team performance and historical outcomes, et cetera, et cetera. So pretty good time to be a Celtics fan. This was by the end of the first quarter. Still favored, just over 50%, but just barely. And this is how the rest of the game went. The Warriors ended up winning the game, and with it, won the NBA Finals last June. And I know we don't keep score in relationships, but it is 1-0 as far as championships go. So why am I talking about basketball? It was around this time, last summer, that my team at Delve started, we set out to develop a similar model, but for what we were calling innovation potential. So could we develop a similar model to track the likelihood of an innovative project outcome for our client work? And so that is what we set out to do. This summit this year is about impact. So I thought, with our time together today, what if we explored how we might measure impact potential? So regardless of what the impact is that you're hoping to achieve, in our case, we try to help our clients be as innovative as possible. Each of you has your own desired impact. And so when I say impact potential, what do I mean? In short, it is simply the likelihood that you will achieve the outcome or impact that you desire. And the interesting and important point here is the potential part. It focuses our attention on measuring the likelihood during a project as opposed to the outcome after a project. And this enables us to make changes along the way to maximize our impact potential. This work partly arose at Delve because we run a lot of project retrospectives. So we look back on a project, see how we did, what we can do better. Retros are really, really great for the next project, but they're not that helpful for the project that we're currently on. And so we wanted to develop a model to help us understand how to change things along the way of a project. And so the question for us became, what if we could create an NBA Finals plot of the innovation potential for each of our client projects? To do that, we had to articulate what the heck innovation is in the first place. So for anybody who has tried to do that, tried to establish a definition or tried to articulate it, you might feel or have felt at times like it's a bit squishy. It's kind of a mysterious system, and it's hard to kind of wrap our arms around and feel like there's a good answer to it, or that it's something we can reliably summon. We definitely felt this way. We felt like it was super ambiguous, and so we started from first principles. We took a step back and said, how do we make the simplest model we can? And basically what's on the screen is what it is. There's a set of inputs, something happens, and then there's a set of outputs, right? So we focused on outputs first, and we said, okay, what are the outcomes of innovation? How might we measure the outcomes of innovation as a way to understand how to maximize innovation? But again, like retros, that's doing it after the fact. So that information isn't helpful from a feedback loop perspective in the moment. So we reframed and said, what are the inputs that we can measure and how might we measure them? And so what do I mean by inputs? For us, the question became, what are the ingredients and the conditions that influence the outcome most? In other words, what has to be present or true in order to maximize the chances of us creating the impact and achieving the outcome that we are hoping for? So I want to go back to your desired impact for a moment and ask you to do another activity. So jot down what are some ingredients or conditions that will most influence your outcome. In other words, what must be present or true in order to achieve the impact you desire. So for my example of the facilitation workshop I'm designing, some ingredients and conditions might be, I need to have an agenda that is going to fit everything in. That might be one thing. Another thing might be participants need to feel trust and credibility in me as a facilitator. Another might be I need buy-in from leadership, that this is a worthwhile use of company time. So take about 30 seconds and jot down a few ingredients. And if you're having any trouble thinking of any, first of all, that's totally okay, because coming up with these on the spot is difficult. In case it helps, think of an inflection point in your project where it felt like the success chances shifted, either for better or for worse. What was true or present before and after? That might suggest what an ingredient or condition is. So this is how we are doing it for innovation potential. This is the framework that we developed through a bunch of research and synthesis. On the left side, we have the scales, organization, team, and individual levels. And then on the right side, we have 6 areas, each of which have a set of ingredients. I'll get to that in a moment. So to run through this quickly, we have at the organization level, purpose, which is essentially an organization's innovation identity, and governance, which is essentially the policies and systems that are in place to support innovation. At the team level, we have conditions, which are essentially what is true about a team, and execution, which is essentially what is true about how a team works. And then at the individual level, we have competencies, i.e. what are people good at, and attitudes, i.e. what do people believe about themselves and the work they do. And these all pop up along with what I was just saying. For today, I want to zoom in on the team level because in the scope of facilitation, this is where we focus a lot of our time, whether it's facilitating a workshop or an entire project. And so the ingredients, I'm not sure people can read these, but that's totally okay. But on the conditions level, we have team composition, psychological safety, team unity, and creative freedom. And at the execution level, we have effective use of innovation tools, customer understanding, established innovation processes, exposure and inspiration, decision-making effectiveness, and team collaboration. So we can begin to measure each of these things and tie that to the outcomes that they enable for us. And in doing that, it helps us create a bit of a predictive model of how we can achieve the innovation that we're searching for. Now, a lot of this stuff is hard to measure. That's table stakes, it's understood, it's hard to measure, but we wanted to start somewhere. On that note, I'm going to ask you to reflect on measuring your ingredients. So pick one of the ingredients or conditions that you listed in the previous step and write down how might you measure it. So for my example of the facilitation workshop, I might say, when it comes to feelings of trust and credibility in me as a facilitator, how do I measure that? Well, one, I could ask the client about their previous experience or preconceived notions about facilitation. What am I up against in terms of the perception? Or secondly, I could self-reflect on, how have I set the stage or set the context so that people know what they are getting into? So take about 30 seconds and think about how you might measure one of your ingredients. So I'll share how we think about measurement a little bit with a couple examples, and feel free to take notes on these if it jogs any inspiration for you. But when it comes to psychological safety, for instance, that's something we can measure through either, say, directly asking folks about their experience on a team, or indirectly through observing team behaviors. When it comes to decision-making effectiveness, we can measure how much does it take to make a decision, how much time or effort does it take for a given flavor of decision? Does it take a day? Does it take a week to make a decision? When it comes to exposure and inspiration, how frequently are we getting outside of our office, outside the conference room? How frequently are we getting to conferences like this, exposing ourselves to new ideas, new thinking, new technologies? How frequently are we getting outside of our own teams inside our organizations, sitting in on meetings for other teams and learning how they might do things? So finally, I want to ask you to jot down what's one thing you can do right now to boost your impact potential. So for me, I might reflect on my facilitation workshop and say, you know what, I haven't prepared, I haven't set the tone enough for the participants in the room. So I'm going to prepare a little bit more introductory materials to help them feel taken care of and like I have credibility and give them confidence in me as a facilitator. So take about 20 seconds and jot down one thing you can do to boost your impact right now. All right, and I'm going to keep moving here. So let's go back to the NBA Finals for a moment. Imagine this is the plot of your impact potential over the course of your most important project right now. I partly share this because it is a source of inspiration for the work that my team is doing right now, but I also share it because it offers a hopeful view for why measuring matters. Sometimes you might feel like you are on the left side of that diagram, where in the Warriors' shoes, you have an 87.9% chance of losing. You feel like you've failed. You feel like you're ready to give up. But by understanding what is true and what might have gotten you there, you're then equipped with how to get out, and so you know what to do to get yourself from the left side up to the right side. And so by equipping ourselves with real-time measurements, we empower ourselves to make the necessary changes to maximize our impact potential, therefore enabling us to achieve the impact that we seek. So I'm going to leave you with 3 quick takeaways. The first is Measure your impact potential during a project, not after. This makes sure that you can make the necessary changes and keep the feedback loops in place so it's actually helpful. 2, focus on the ingredients and the conditions that influence impact. These are the things that are actually inside your control, and over time, you will learn the ones that are most influential. Right now, things might be a hypothesis. Over time, you'll learn what actually matters. And number 3, don't bet against the Golden State Warriors. Those are my words for you today. Thank you very much.